This is Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz in our state's capital, Sacramento. We are joined today by Ian Calderon. He is a member of the California State Assembly. And so recently, my wife and I were home, and we turned on demand, and we watched Dallas Buyers Club, which was about the HIV crisis in the 80s. And the patients were desperate to get drugs which they could try. The drugs were not approved, but they wanted to do anything they could to try to live and survive. And then I remembered, wait, Ian Calderon has a bill that may have helped them, back in the 80s, known as Right to Try.
Right.
Give us some background on Right to Try.
Well, I suppose you're familiar with Brittany Maynard and her situation with the right to die.
Yes.
When that happened, I knew that this was going to be something that was going to be coming to the state legislature, so I started doing some research so that I could educate myself on the issue, kind of, Oregon law, what they did.
And let's mention the Brittany Maynard case out of Oregon. She was a California resident who moved to Oregon so she could take advantage of their law, which allowed essentially her decision to take a medication that would end her life.
Yeah, it's assisted suicide.
Assisted suicide. Bill Monning, I believe, in the California State Senate is pushing a bill on that front.
Yeah, both Bill Monning and Lois Wolk.
Right. Now, you're looking at a different issue, though, which is the right to try.
Right to try issue.
Right.
And so in that research and trying to educate myself on that issue, I found this issue of right to try, which at the time a few other states had been doing. And I really loved the idea because if I was in that situation, I could only imagine what it's like, not only for the patient, but for the family and everybody involved. But I know that I would want the ability to try and fight for my own life. I mean, yeah, the argument can be made, yeah, I'd want this decision to end it if it's really that bad for myself, but what about the people that don't want to end it? What about the people that want to keep fighting and they need access to experimental drugs that have basic safety standards so you can take it but yet haven't been approved by the FDA, which is actually a really long and arduous process which could take up to 10 years. What happens to those people? And I just thought it was a real interesting issue because in the state of California, we don't necessarily have any law that says that you can try these experimental drugs. There's a program through the FDA, but it still takes time. Everything takes time, and a point where these patients, they don't have time. So I thought, why don't we author a bill that allows this state to give patients the opportunity to swing for the fences in their greatest time of need to try and save their own life. Hence, right to try.
So how would this program work? Because like you said, there is a baseline. Who decides if that baseline has been met? Is it through the federal FDA or is it through the state of California?
All drugs, to even get into the trial process, they have to have a certain level of basic safety standards to which they have to pass. We're talking about these drugs. Obviously, you can't take something that doesn't have any type of safety standard put in place. Now, where it comes in when it comes to this bill is, say I have a terminal illness and I go to my doctor. And my doctor says, well, there's this drug out there that might be able to help you. And if between you and your doctor, you've decided that you have a terminal illness, which is a disease that's going to rapidly end your life within a year or so, then you can have access to this. But the physician has to approve it. You have to provide written informed consent that you understand the potential risks of what you're about to engage in. The doctor then has to approve that. Then you have to get a secondary consultation from another doctor. Then it goes to an institutional review board, which meet once a month. All these boards meet once a month in different hospitals. And then they review it just to make sure everything is kosher and okay. And then that institutional review board is also required biannually to report to the Department of Public Health, just to make sure we have some stats on how the program is working. But this bill requires no one to do anything. This is all about access and the opportunity to try and save your life. So when it comes to insurance companies, they're not required to cover this, but they can if they choose. Doctors aren't required to allow you access, but they can if they choose. Drug companies, they're not required to give you the drugs, but it allows them the opportunity to give you the drugs if that's what they choose. So this is all about access, and it all points to the fundamental issue that is with the FDA because they take so long to approve any drug. And so hopefully by all the states coming together and doing this individual bill and the individual law, it will put pressure on the feds and on the federal government to try and make this process quicker so that we can get access to these drugs that are potentially life-saving drugs for millions of people across the country.
So as I understand it, 21 other states have a version of right to try. Have you modeled this bill off another state's version? And I ask that because it sounds like there's a patchwork, and maybe that's great because each state has its own laboratory, and then we'll figure out what's best, and that will be the federal law. But I'm trying to get a sense where we are on this.
You know, we did model, I mean, in a way, we looked at what other states were proposing, and really it was just very broad, and it just points to the idea of providing access without requiring anybody to do anything, not letting an agent of the state come in and stop you from trying to get access to these drugs. And so, but through the process, we did recognize that we have to have some type of protections and some type of way that we can calculate how successful the program is, and making sure that people, when they're trying to go through this process, that they are safe and that isn't just, you know, quick decisions being made because, you know, everybody's forced to because of different timelines with regards to that illness and how fast it's progressing. There needs to be safeguards in place. And so, while it sounds like a lot, this all could be done within a week, but that's an important point because when you go through, like the federal government through the FDA has a compassionate use program. And you can get access to these same experimental drugs, but yet it could take a month or two to get access into this program. Well, if you're given 6 months to live, a month or two, that could be your life. So you need it to be quicker, but there is no other remedy for that as of right now, and so that's why I felt it necessary to carry this bill.
Is this fair at a certain level? I mean, are we creating false hope?
You know, that argument's been made, but what would you rather have the hope that you have nothing, or at least feel like, okay, it may not work, but at least I have a shot? I would want to at least have a shot.
At the same time, I can envision arguments in favor of this bill from a progressive point of view. I can envision arguments in favor of this bill from a conservative libertarian point of view. So what happened when it went to the floor of the California State Legislature? Because you got everyone in between on the floor.
This was very much a bipartisan issue.
Really?
We received about 74 aye votes out of the potential 80.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
We've gone to the Senate.
Right.
The Senate has passed it out of their Health Committee.
Okay.
And now we're on to the next committee, which is Senate B&P.
What about the governor? Because obviously he's the final arbiter. And, you know, he's a man of faith. I'm not sure if the faith-based communities have jumped in on this. Have they?
Not to my knowledge. They've been more focused on the right to die issue.
Clearly. And so do you have a sense? I'm always interested. You know, I would have thought, and this is not unique to Ian Calderon, that when you're thinking of legislation, you talk to the governor and see what he thinks in advance. But I guess it's not done that way.
Not necessarily. Sometimes, if he's weighed in on an issue and you want to do something, it would behoove you to talk to him. But he hasn't really weighed in on this issue, and so, you know, we don't feel like he would have any reason to not be supportive of it. But you never know. He could not like it, but the only way to know for sure is to put it on his desk and see if he signs it or not.
So how's it looking in the Senate as we speak? Like you said, it cleared health, it's in business and professions, but it's got to get to the floor. Are you over there? I mean, do you lobby your fellow or your senators? What happens?
It's going well. Everybody, I think, appreciates where I'm coming from on it, because it's not like I'm carrying this bill for any specific industry. Or this isn't a sponsored bill. The sponsor of this bill is me. This is because I thought it was just the right piece of legislation, the right thing to do for California. And because, you know, that's where I'm coming from, I think people, especially legislators in the Senate, they look at it as, yeah, no, that's a good issue. And I would want that for myself. I'd want that for my family. What if it was my child? I'd want that for my child, my parent, my grandparents. So it's getting, it's a great reception over there. You know, we have to make sure it's safe. We have to make sure that we completely and fully understand what it is that we're doing, but we are doing that, and the Senate is being very receptive.
Okay, his name is Ian Calderon. He represents significant portions of Los Angeles County in the California State Assembly. My name is Brad Pomerantz. We're in Sacramento, and this is Local Edition.